What's going on at the internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. This here is a new Powkiddy that goes by the name V20. Very unique, I know, especially in this space. But Powkiddy is a brand that last year started making better and better handhelds than they had previously, trying to move themselves out of that budget brand. Though they tend to still be in budget pricing with higher quality parts, this Powkiddy V20 is no different. It's got high-end internals. We're going to find out where it stacks up in the price to performance range. Let's take a look. And here we have the box for the Powkiddy V20. This was brought to us from our friends over at Mech DIY. We'll talk about that later. It is your typical Powkiddy box. Oddly enough, though, they have two extra colors on this box that they actually do not offer this on their website. So they may have plans for future expansion, though we have seen Powkiddy do this before and never come out with another color. So it's really hard to say. But here we go. All right. Right off the bat, we do have a 256 CP card. Definitely not the worst cards. I can work with a CP card. I haven't had really any issues with those, to be honest with you. And then we do have the origami accordion. There are a couple buttons on here that this doesn't actually tell you what they do. So unless you guys can pause and see what that is, the function introduction, there's a couple buttons on here that aren't used. Here's a dead giveaway where you got a button chart, but we're going to find out about that. All right, and we do have our handheld here, which I guess we'll put to the side. Sure, why not? We'll take this off of here. In here we do have a Type A to Type C USB cable. It's the purple one. No idea what that means. These are all just whatever voltage they want them to be. And then uniquely, because Powkiddy loves to give you stickers to put on your handhelds, this one here comes with tape deck stickers, and we do have red and blue. The Select Start album is great. Put that stuff over here. And we have our handheld. And here it is. This is the Powkiddy V20 in all of its glory. You know what we need to do? We need to put one of these stickers on before we go any further. Well, we just lost the studio light, but we're going to go through the I/O real quick. And while we do that, I will also put up the specs on the screen for you today. First, we're going to start off the top, which is very boring place to start because it is empty. But if we go to the back here, we do have backside shoulder and trigger buttons that do have a really good angle on them. I'm going to try to get this on here for you so you can see it, but there's a little bit of a... I'll just cover it with my thumb. There is a little bit of a ledge here where the triggers do pick up above the bumpers, but it is kind of hard to see even on the poker cam. But other than some of the other companies that make handhelds in this similar form factor, these are very well done. They are flush, or actually even a little bit inset below this top ridge line, which makes a big difference for pocketability, and they just have a really good comfortable feel to them right from the factory. You don't have to worry about any of that extra plastic that's hanging off of them or anything like that. They even molded them into the side of the device and just still give them like about a millimeter gap so you're not hooking them on things. Really good job from Powkiddy. I am very impressed for some of the things they've come out with in the past, including these type of buttons. They did a really good job here, and these are a little bit loud, but a lot quieter than Powkiddy has been in the past, and they don't rattle like other Powkiddy devices. So big step up in the right direction. Right here, we also do have our battery cover. It is screwed in, and that's okay. We still have access directly to the battery. It's just like accessing any other child's toy, and seeing as they're rechargeable, you'll probably never have to open it anyway, so not a big deal. On the right-hand side over here, we do have volume up and down, and then we also do have a micro SD slot, and this is the operational side, which I think is completely the opposite of every vertical handheld I've ever reviewed, unless both are on the right side. I don't think I've ever done one where the right side was operating and the left side was games, but we do have that card right there. On the left side over here, we do have a power and reset button along with that game card slot that I was just talking about right there. So we do have an ST hole right there for the left-hand side. On the bottom down here, we have two C holes and a 3.5 jack hole. These C holes are going to come in the form of charging and OTG. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get any dongles to work off of OTG, but controllers do work off this port, and that's about all I've been able to get to work out of there. On the front here, we do have a 3.5-inch screen, and we do have a plus and minus button, and you'll never guess what these do. No, seriously, guess. If you can figure out what these do, you let me know down in the comment section below, because they're not in the book, and I haven't found any function that makes it work. I kind of thought it might be for like brightness, but brightness is actually select and volume. I don't know. Definitely not these, so they don't seem to do anything. I have no idea what purpose of having these on here. Other than Powkiddy installed these on the V10, which is the previous model to this, I don't know any other reason for them. I'm not even sure if they're hooked up. After a week of playing with this, I have yet to find any use for them. We do have our sticks here. They are switch style, the same switch style sticks Powkiddy and everybody else have been using for years. It'd be nice if they started upgrading these. It seems like Hall effect sticks are getting cheaper and cheaper as more and more companies are using them. Now that TMR is out, maybe we will see Hall effects get to the point where Powkiddy will start using them on their devices. We do have our ABXY buttons buttons here. They do have a decent travel and bounce to them. They're not obnoxious by any means. Hopefully you can see this because this is where the light went out. But they do have a pretty good recoil. They're not hard to push down, but they're not super like fluffy either. And they do have a good amount of bounce. They're about perfect actually, really. We do have our start and select. So other than plus and minus, start and select are going to be our other clicky buttons here on the front on micro switches. And then we do have our D-pad. It's a little stiffer, I think, than what I would like, but for Powkiddy, it's actually pretty decent. Powkiddy kind of goes back and forth with D-pads. They tend to get a little sloppy. Nothing's moving when it's not supposed to, and you can kind of feel everything rolling through, so I think it's going to be just fine. And then we do have some little lights down here on our cassette tape front, and these little lights down here tell us if we're charging or not, or if we have power on, which we obviously do. So let's dig into it a little bit. Now, before we get any further, this handheld was brought to us from our friends over here at Mech DIY. I love working with Mech DIY, and the reason being is they got good customer service for my viewers. I don't get really any complaints about them. They just opened up a 24-hour chat on their website, which is great because a lot of times when we deal with some of these overseas companies, they work on a different timetable than we do. So it has been really nice working with them, and they've been great. And one part of what makes them great is they do not care what I do in my reviews. They allow me to review these devices without fear or favor. They do not get to see these videos before you guys get to see them. They have no input in anything that I do here, and that's why we have such a great relationship. They just want me to give honest reviews on devices they sell. They don't manufacture them, so it allows me to be upfront about these handhelds right out the gate. But thanks again to our friends at Mech DIY. There's a link down on my thingamabob if you want to pick up this device and use my code. It's up here on the screen, retrospect16. That code will get you 16% off of this handheld or any other handheld you buy on the Mech DIY website. Let's get on with it. It's kind of built in here. I'm not exactly sure if this is technically Powkiddy's operating system. The only one that I know for sure that it came on is the X35H, came with the Powkiddy operating system. I believe that was the device right before this and the first one to come with it. This has the hints of that. I know some people are getting this handheld shipped to them with Batocera built in. I did change the way these icons look just because it's a little bit easier for me to work with it this way in this Switch style theme that they have got going on here. But if you look in the operating system, this is looking more and more like the Powkiddy operating system. This is an emulation station V42 dev mod. Yeah, whatever that means. I'm not a dev, so I don't know. Sometimes I can pick them out when I look at them. Wait, we have SNES and we have different games. I'm so confused. Sorry. But yes, this is an emulation station front end that we are seeing here anyways, and it is that Powkiddy back end, sort of, kind of, however they're doing that. This looks different than the X35H did, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but I digress. I am though going to tell you a couple of secrets about this particular operating system. This will operate just like every other emulation station front end, but there are a couple things in the game functionalities. If you go into the game settings here on the top, and we're going to go down to the bottom, there's a per game advanced configuration. You're going to go in here into Sony PlayStation, because if you are going to play any PS1 on here, I should have just started at the bottom. If you're going to play any PS1 on here, it actually comes with this Medafin PSX here as the default. You're going to want to change that to either Rearmed or Swan Station. The reason being is the emulator that's chosen here from the factory struggles to play a PlayStation 1 game. I don't know why they defaulted to it. I'm not even sure why they downloaded it on RetroArch, to be honest with you, but I tried to use it. Right away I knew I had the wrong core, but I went through 3 different games hoping it wasn't the processor, and it wasn't. It was literally just the core that they were using, and that's because they were using this Medafin PSX core. It was terrible. But if you go to PCSX Rearmed or if you go to Swan Station, either one works good. I'm using Rearmed, but typically I actually do use Swan Station, but I just wanted to go through all of them and test them, and Rearmed was the last one I ended up on, and it worked just fine. So whichever one you want to use there, it's going to be good. I didn't run into that problem really with any of the other cores. The only issue I run into sometimes is with the standalones with like PSP is fine, but N64, I can't get out of a game when I'm in N64. In some of the systems on here, I cannot actually access the menus, so it's really hard to use your save states without being able to access the menus. I haven't been able to figure out. I was really hoping it's going to be one of these plus or minus buttons, which is why I spent so much damn time trying to figure out what they do, thinking that it was going to be like select plus or something like that. As far as I can tell, these don't do anything. They're not even volume because you have volume keys, and if you wanted them to be brightness, which would be the only other thing you'd really want to have default to these, also use the volume keys. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's driving me insane. Alright, get it together, Selfish. These sticks on here are decent. They're just regular Switch style sticks. Nothing to write home about. They don't bottom out or anything like that, which is good as far as the edges go. In fact, they have a lot of room on these edges. They almost could have made this device thinner with keeping the sticks still in the same type of position they're in right now, or they could have made them completely flush, but right now they're pretty much even with the face buttons and the D-pad. D-pad's a little bit lower, but the face buttons for sure, not a big deal. As I said, also going through it, these face buttons do work pretty well, and this D-pad is not terrible. You can play a fighting game or a platformer with it, not the worst thing in the world. There are definitely far worse D-pads out there. I do keep putting the memory card in the wrong side of this because I did change out some of the games for some of my own copies. Haven't got all the way through the library yet. I mean, it's kind of big at 256 gigs, but there were a couple that that I had better versions of that I wanted to play versus the ones that were on here, so I put them in. But most of the ones, though, are the same or similar to what I'm used to using, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. I just keep putting it in the wrong side because all the other devices go in that way, and this one goes in over here. The other thing to keep conscious of is if you can't remember which ones are charging or your OTG hole, it is actually marked on the back here, and every time I go to plug this in, I actually have to look. Even though I know this side over here is charging, I still have to look to double check because I don't want to try to charge it through the OTG hole, mostly just because I don't want it to be dead when I go to play it again. If you do want to change your theme too to make it look kind of uniquely yours, it's going to be like any other emulation station front end. You are going to find that under here, user interface settings and your theme set, which is the top option, and you can choose whatever you want. The ones that I have on here were already pre-installed, so I'm just using that. And the reason why I'm using that is even though it has all this stuff for networking inside of the menu system, there is no internal Wi-Fi, and I cannot get a dongle to work out of the OTG port. The only thing I've been able to get to work out of the OTG port was a controller. I cannot get a dongle for Wi-Fi, which really knocks this handheld off its pedestal for me until I realized where they're marketing this handheld to. This is really designed to fit smack dab between the RG353VS and the R36S. And it does so pretty well, both in price and performance. Like I said, this has got a A133P in it, which is slightly less performance than the RK3326 that happens to be in the RG353V and VS. And then you have your R36S, which is running the RK3326. It does fit nicely between them. When it comes to price to performance, it fits a lot further over this way towards the R36S, and it feature-wise is almost exactly the same. Pretty much the same everything, including the lack of Wi-Fi. Now, this does come with good back buttons, where this one does not come with good back buttons, but you can switch them out like I did. This one here actually just comes with ones that are really comfortable to use out of the factory. I don't think I'd ever switch these because they're comfortable. The only thing I'd probably want to do is dull the noise a little bit from the micro switches that are in them, but it really isn't that bad. And this is actually truly an RG353V, not a VS. It looks exactly the same as the VS though, which just happens to have one less gig of RAM and doesn't run dual boot with Android. So the value of the V is definitely the dual boot with Android, the extra gig of RAM on the RK3326 SOC, because this is going to have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all the happy things that you really want in a device. They all belong here. These, sometimes you take compromises, but here you're not compromising on power like you are with the R36S. I know everybody loves the R36S because it's so cheap, but guess what? This kind of fits right in that same price range. You're not going to pay much more for this than you are the R36S, and you're going to get a fairly significant power increase. Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean you're going to be playing Switch on here. For one, it doesn't have Android, so you're not going to be playing Switch on here anyways. It doesn't have the power for it. You're pretty much going to be playing the same games you're going to be playing on the R36S, but overall, you're just going to have less issues with it. If you're using the R36S and you're like, I love this thing, there's no better handheld out there, nobody can take this thing out of my cold dead hand, it doesn't matter what I tell you, you're going to think that this is not what you want. But when you actually sit back and relax and you're playing a game and it dies next time, just think, Selfish told me that there is a V20 out there that might not have the same issues with these games that I'm having, because likely it's not going to if you keep within the same systems. But let's get into a little gameplay here. We'll put these off to the side, we'll get into a little gameplay, and we'll pick her back up at the end. If you want to quit a game, it's like a lot of these other systems, but if you haven't used one before, it's select start, and you do it twice. So you can either go select start start and it'll exit, or you can just hit them both with your thumb at the same time, and it should exit. Yeah, it's exiting too. It's going slower than I wanted it to. Dreamcast's another system I had to kind of monkey around with a little bit. It'll let you play it, but it will only let you play it in the Flycast standalone emulator. If you try to do Flycast through RetroArch, the way that it was set up, it will actually not load any games. I don't know why that is, so the core must be missing on here. But without Wi-Fi, it's kind of hard to add the cores, so you can't actually load it that way. But if you go and change it to the Flycast core, signs right in. It's just, you gotta run off the standalone. Now, if you're playing something like PSP and you go into the menu system, it's going to be selecting X instead of selecting B, but then you'll have full access to all your settings and things in PPSSPP, where you can do your save states. You can come in here and you can change any settings you want as well. And what I'm looking for is a control setting for my fast forward button. I started playing Batman Returns on Game Gear because Aiden Wallace's post, it spoke to me. And, well, the game's not very good. Game's not very good. I don't know why I'm playing it, but here I go. I did have this game as a child, so maybe that's why it spoke to me, but it's no Arkham Knights, I'll tell you what. So that gives you a little look of the Powkiddy V20. It is actually a really nice handheld. It's very comfortable to hold. It does have some downfalls, no Bluetooth. Also, the speaker on here, not my favorite speaker. It does the trick, but if you really crank it, it does get pretty loud, but if you do crank it, it kind of sucks. It's a little raspy if you crank it up too loud. Though I am really happy they put a front-firing speaker in here. That's probably why I can hear the raspiness of the speaker, is because it is front-firing. They did it half right. No Wi-Fi, even with a dongle, which is really depressing. I think that can normally be fixed with custom firmware. I'd imagine that there will be some firmware for this. Powkiddy's so good at ripping off other people's firmware. I wouldn't be surprised if other firmware actually already works in here, maybe even out of the trim my brick, though the screens are a little bit different, so you'd have to fix the scaling. We can go back and we'll take a look and see what firmware we can find that works on here. I'm assuming that something's going to make it work. And since the A133P typically has Wi-Fi built in, is why I'm even more confused. It should already have Wi-Fi as part of the SOC, so I don't know why that A doesn't work, and then B, you can't use it with a dongle, which makes me think that something is preventing it from working, and the only thing that makes sense to me is firmware. So hopefully some dev out there that's smart, they're all smart. What am I talking about? Hopefully some dev out there will take a look at it and maybe get our Wi-Fi working internally, if not, at least through a dongle. I'd be fine with the dongle on this one anyways. With my little horseshoe dongle, it fits really nice on here and doesn't get in your way. So devs, if you're watching, which you're probably not, but if you are, hook a brother up. That would make this even more of a daily driver for me. But other than that, build quality, everything on this is really good. It's very much new style Powkiddy, where it doesn't seem like AI built this handheld. It feels like some people actually put some time and some care into it, which has been a new change, again, in like the last 5 or so handhelds that Powkiddy has released. They've been really good compared to some of their older stuff. Not to say that some of their older stuff wasn't pretty good too, but they've done really well recently, and I'm very impressed right here. I think that this is absolutely a step in the right direction. I also thought that about the V10, the one that preceded this one, because I'm a huge Game Boy Advance fan. I think they did some good work there. This one here is more of an everyday handheld, an every man's handheld, every gamer's handheld. Yeah, because there's a lot of girl gamers out there these days. It's an every gamer's handheld where you can play most of your retro classics on here, all the way up to PS1, some PSP and Dreamcast and stuff like that too, but we'll just say reliably, anything underneath the 3566, you can reliably play through PS1, and even the 3566, it's kind of a stretch with Dreamcast sometimes, but this will do that very well, and I dare to say it, but it does actually do it better than my R36S. Shh. Don't tell the fans though. People love that thing. I mean, obviously I do. I put more into accessories on my R36S, at least 3 times more into parts for this thing than it actually cost me to pick it up. So it's pretty cool. I do like it, but this does actually perform a little bit better. So who's this device for? Well, really somebody who doesn't need Wi-Fi, doesn't care about retro achievements, isn't going to go try to scrape their box art. Even if you do get Wi-Fi on here, the scraping mechanism in here is specifically for arcade again, similar to another recent handheld that I reviewed. The GKD Pixel 2 also was set up for arcade. This one here, I don't know what's going on with Screen Scraper. I don't know if there was some big fallout with Screen Scraper, but all of a sudden, different companies now are starting to just go to the arcade Screen Scraper and get rid of the actual Screen Scraper website, which I don't get because, again, I must have missed something. Nobody sent me the memo, but without that, you can't play your retro achievements either. Like I said, you can't download new themes. I really struggle with devices that don't have Wi-Fi in the year 2025, especially when this has an SOC in it that's known for having Wi-Fi and every other device that has this SOC. So I'm mind-boggled. What do you think about the Powkiddy V20? Have you used one yet? Has it been a device you've been looking at? Let me know down in the comments section down below. I'd love to know your guys' input on this device. I know this kind of flew under the radar when it came out. Powkiddy didn't make a big announcement. I think they should have. This is a very competitive handheld and it does very well, but they did not do such a thing. But if you've been trying to watch this whole time and saying, where do I get one of those sexy handhelds? Remember, there is a link down in my thingamabob with a code RETROSPEC16 that will give you 16% off this device. If you head over to that link and pick it up there, right now, as of filming, it'll be cheaper through my link than it is at Powkiddy or on AliExpress. So you can save yourself some money V20 and get the handheld, and also get the great team at Mech DIY to help you out if you have any problems. That's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe. Share this video with your friends because sharing helps grow the channel. It's also sharing is caring, and we care about each other here. Once you're done with all of that, do yourself a favor and watch one of these videos on the screen that Google picked out for you. They say that you are going to like this video, and I tend to believe Google when they tell me that. So take a look at one of these videos. It should bring you to something that is in your interest. And if it doesn't, well, at the end of that video, click on the next one that pops up there. Maybe that one will be more interesting to you. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.